Me llamo Tao Yu, del Instituto Nacional de Ciencias de Deporte de China, y les agradezco mucho que me ha invitado a esta Summer School for Professors Training. Hoy voy a hablar sobre ejercicio, neurociencias y educación. ¿Por qué hablo sobre ejercicio? Por dos razones. The first one is the perfection of the body is one part of our education. So we know that el gran filosófico Platón, he said that the purpose of education is to give to the body and to the soul all the beauty and all the perfection of which they are capable. So that means we are not just to pass the knowledge to our student. We need to make them be prepared, not just their brain, but also the body for the future. And also, as we can see nowadays that our lifestyle has changed a lot. In the ancient time, we hunt, we run to get food, and we eat and we move. So, comíamos y movíamos. But nowadays, with all of these transport tools, we have bike, bus, subway, car, and especially with the development of the technology, nowadays we have the computers, smartphones. We don't even to go to the office, we can work. And with a smartphone, we can buy everything in the supermarket. We can order our food. So in fact, I think that we even don't need to go out of our home and we can do everything. So that leads the consequence is that we eat more and we move less. So we have a sedentary lifestyle. So based on the data from the CDC in the United States, that only 1 in 4 US adults and 1 in 5 high school students meet the recommended physical activity guidelines. So that means the majority of us are lack of physical activity. And what the lack of activity will bring to us? So as we can see that the lack of physical activity has been shown to be a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and to have the risk to develop high blood pressure and also the type 2 diabetes. Once again, Platon tells us that lack of activity destroys the good condition of every human being, where movement and methodical physical exercise save it and preserve it. So that means we have to do exercise to make us and to make our students be prepared for the future. And the second reason is the body and the brain, they can influence each other. So we know that neuroscience has been applied a lot in our education. Almost 90% of the teachers consider knowledge about brain functions relevant for the planning of education program. So we use this knowledge to cause the attention of our students, to make them understand better and to make them learn remember for a longer time. And this is what we are using the neuroscience knowledge in the education. And we know that when we talk about education, neuroscience plays a very important role in it. And normally, most of us think that our brain is a boss because it can send the orders to our muscle. But in fact, the brain and the muscle, they can, communicate. So that means not just the brain send the information to the muscle. At the same time, the muscle can send the information to the brain. the rest of my presentation, I will show how exercise or physical activity can influence our brain functions. And I will talk in 4 aspects. The first is learning and memory. The second is emotion. And the third one is attention. And the last one, I will talk how to exercise. Is it the more, the better? So first, exercise improve memory and learning. So when we talk about learning and memory, we think about hippocampus, which is the part in our brain, and it is regarded as a key brain center for memory. It is this structure, and the hippocampus at the same time it is the part in our brain how to say, more affected in the Alzheimer's disease or other dementia, for example. Alzheimer's disease, as we can see here, we can see the atrophy of the hippocampus in the patient. So when we talk about Alzheimer's, when we talk about the memory and the cognitive function, in fact, it has a very long process to have to finally have the symptom of dementia. As we can see here, sometimes it can last for even 20 years to have this dementia phase. And before that, we have the preclinical phase here and the MCI, the mild cognitive impairment phase. And the important phase is for us is a preclinical phase, because we know that to treat Alzheimer's disease is not easy, and what we can do is to prevent it. And in this phase is the best phase to reverse the function of our brain. However, this phase is very difficult to diagnose. As we can see here, this phase is also called the silent phase. That means the patient can feel that the brain is not working as good as before, the memory is not as good as before, but in the hospital, it cannot be detected. So the doctor will say, okay, we cannot detect any impairment in your brain, and so it is very difficult to get the treatment in the hospital, but we have to do something, right? So one thing is to do exercise. As we can see here, exercise before and after exercise, we can see the volume. So this is the volume of the hippocampus in the left and the right hippocampus is increased, and at the same time, this result can improve the memory, la memoria. And why exercise can improve our memory? One mechanism is through the BDNF. Brain, it is called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It belongs to the neurotrophin family, which include NGF, BDNF, and T3 and T4. And the BDNF is the key neurotrophin because it can regulate the neuronal survival, the cell growth, synapses formation, transmission, plasticity, and cognitive function. So without BDNF, we cannot develop the function of the hippocampus or the function of the brain correctly. So exercise can improve BDNF level as based on our study and the published data. Exercise can increase the level of BDNF both in the brain and in the blood. And also, in fact, BDNF is also expressed in the muscle. But here we just talk about the role of BDNF in the brain. So once the BDNF level is increased after exercise, it will function to increase the neurogenesis, for example, the neurogenesis in the hippocampus, which is very important in the memory and the learning. And also it can increase the synapse number and function. So BDNF is also in charge of the LTP. And consequently, all this improved function caused by increased level of BDNF can help us to
Traigo a continuation. I'm going to talk about the emotion. So before I talk about how exercise improves the emotion, I will tell a story in Spanish. So hay una historia, dice que un día un médico quiere saber por qué las mujeres son tan complicadas. Así él abre la cabeza de una mujer y se ve tantas conexiones desde aquí hasta ahí, desde ahí hasta allá. Así el médico sabe que las mujeres son muy complicadas, se puede hacer muchas cosas a la vez. Y luego él abre la cabeza de un hombre y le ha asustado porque solo hay un hilo de la oreja izquierda hasta la oreja derecha. Bueno, esto es un chiste. But in fact, in the structure of the brain, there is some difference between a man and a woman. As we can see here, there is a structure called the corpus callosum, which connects the left brain to the right brain. And then in the woman, there is the corpus callosum is larger than the man. So the information can pass from the left to the right, as we can see here, much more in the woman than in the man. And we know that the left brain is in charge of the language and the right one is in charge of the emotion. So that means that normally and the women, they are good at expressing their feelings and their emotion. And here we can also see that how is the difference between man and the woman to deal with their emotion. As we can see, normally the men or the boys, they use the violence to solve the problem. Well, in case of the girls, of the women, we don't do that because we are not as strong as the men. And what we do is to talk, to express our feelings. We can complain a lot. And also the secret weapon is to spread rumors. So this is the difference, as you can see. And based on that, we can find that in fact in the disease of depression, it is more common in women. And nowadays we know that depression is how to say that the prevalence of depression is increasing, not just for the people who are working, but also for the students in the university. So we have to take care of this because it will affect our education, and it is not good for the student for now and for their future. So this data tells us that the depression is more common in women. And when we have a look at the suicide, it is the opposite. It is the men who like to take the actions. And what is the mechanism? One mechanism is that the serotonin, it is a neurotransmitter in the brain, and it controls mood, memory, sleep, and cognition. And in the disease of depression, we can see that the level of serotonin is clearly decreased. And to treat it, the antidepressant drug is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, just to increase the level of serotonin. And the good thing is that exercise can increase with serotonin. And also the difference between man and woman is that the man, they can produce serotonin much more faster than the woman. So this is why when the wife is quarreling with a husband, normally it is a husband who get out of this bad emotion first. And then, in fact, sometimes this will make the wife much more angry. So be careful with that. And then there is a sentence which is said that if the wife is happy, the whole family is happy. So to increase the level of serotonin, there are some drugs. We know that the drugs for depression always have some side effect, but exercise is a good way to increase serotonin level, as we can see here. So this is why we ask our students to do exercise, not just sit in the classroom to learn or to read. So the the third part is exercise improves attention. We know that we want our we want our students to pay enough attention to the class. So in this way, they can study better, and a lot of studies have shown that exercise can improve the ability of the attention of our students. And this is from the EEG data, compare the brain at rest and the brain after a walk, and we can see the clearly difference. And also, a lot of students, or even us professors, we take coffee to improve our attention. And in fact, we can see that coffee does work because it can decrease our reaction time. But at the same time, we can see that exercise is a good way to decrease the reaction time too, because we can see here. So without a coffee, or if you don't have the chance to get a coffee, just to do exercise. So exercise after exercise, you can see that you can learn the new vocabulary much faster, reaction time is shorter, and the attention, you can pay a lot of attention to what you are interested, and also to improve the learning abilities. And the thing is, exercise is too good. Is it the most better? The fact is not. It's just like a coin has two faces. Exercise is not always good. For example, if you take too much exercise, you will feel sleepy. So this is not what we want. We want our students pay attention to the class but not sleep. And also, if they take take exercise with a high intensity, the risk of injury is increased, and with the injury, definitely they cannot go to the class, and this is not what we want neither. And this is for the athlete what we have done the feature to say that with the increasing of the training load, there is a point to get the best performance, but at the same time, we need to pay attention that if the load is increasing, the risk of injury is also increased. So how to control the intensity of the risk of the injury when we do exercise? A very good way is to measure the internal training load. Normally in the athletes, we separate the training load into external training load and internal training load. The external training load, as we can understand just from this word, it is what the athlete take. For example, the number of sprints, the weight they lift. So knowing the external training load, we can see that the ability of the athlete, but at the same time, we need to measure the internal training load to see if they can adapt or adapt well to the training. If not, the training is too much for the athlete. So this, in the case of the student, as we can see, that if we ask our student to run for example, 400 meters, the first one who reaches the end probably is not the one who ran the hardest, because if we measure the heart rate, we will see that sometimes it is not the first one who give us the highest number of heart rate, and heart rate can reflect if the person or this student is trying their best or not. So we need to take care. We need to be careful when we ask our student to do exercise, just to control their internal training load. So this is a conclusion. Physical movement. Sorry. Physical movement improves mental focus, memory, emotion, and cognitive flexibility. It is crucial to academic performance, and we have to apply it scientifically. So exercise can improve emotion, memory, attention through neuroscience, and consequently, it will be very helpful in education. So thank you very much for your listening.